And when I was writing my notes, I was clearly in a little frisky mood because I said the flashlight isn't about communicating, except maybe with Batman. Hello, nerd alert.
Yeah, I never understood why the villains just didn't take out the light.
I know, really? Why didn't they just shoot it out?
Yeah.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. And joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, David.
I was wondering if you were going to join me there.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of trouble getting us both on the same page this morning.
I mean, yeah, everything from I can't hear you to the mouse is not working properly to you're just
you couldn't hear me because you had yourself muted.
No, I had you muted. Which is
true.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, right back at you, buddy. Right back at you.
I know. Anyway, so we're finally doing this. All right. So before we dive into the HIPAA boot camp announcement, because it's coming, we got people registering. It's exciting. I love it.
I know.
So, but you got a couple things coming up. So where are you going to be, Carmen Sandiego?
Where in the world is I don't know whether it's more like Finding Waldo, but first thing is on September 12th, 13th, 19th, and 20th is the ForMed approved Healthcare Cybersecurity Officer live webinar workshop with yours truly. And if you go there to sign up, you use the coupon code Grindle20, you get a 20% discount. It's a class where I teach you how you would merge using HIPAA along with the concepts of the NIST cybersecurity framework to be that cybersecurity officer that's managing all that stuff. Then on October 18th, I'm speaking at the Georgia Pediatric Practice Administrators Fall Conference. That'll be fun. I'm the keynote there. You know how well I do in the mornings. And then we have boot camp, and we're finally going to get the dates. We have been busted because I made a typo in the template, and then you know what happens when you make a typo in the template? You keep using it.
Yeah, that's consistency. That's what we're all about.
Yeah. The good news is the website's fine. We're just the ones that aren't. So, and
David's
like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault.
That is all on you. Yeah, you had one job, Donna. One job.
Yeah, just one.
Shout out to Krista. You had one job.
Yeah, and then it's like after all of that's been fixed, then Carla hits us with it. I'm like, hey, we dealt with that a week ago. You're just now catching up.
Yeah, I know.
So the boot camp is Thursday and Friday, October 25th and 26th. There you go.
That changes things.
No, it's Thursday and Friday. It's the Thursday and Friday at the end of the month. We always do it on a Thursday and Friday because
you need a weekend recover.
I do. I'm so exhausted at the end, but it will be a lot of fun. And a few episodes ago, we did a whole discussion on what it involves, and I haven't confirmed it to make sure it's still out there, but a couple of days ago, it was out there. David actually popped that little audio out there, and you can listen to that on the helpmewithhipaa.com/bootcamp or thehipaabootcamp.com. And you can hear us describe the details of what it is at the boot camp, the experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. I had somebody I was speaking with the other day. They're the C-suite people I was talking to, and one of their compliance officers came to the last boot camp. And so he says, I do not know what you did or what you told her, but she is lighting our office up with stuff that we need to be doing. And I don't know whether to say thank you or don't ever do that again. So I said, you should come to the next one and then you'll understand what it's all about.
Yeah, there you go.
So he may show up. He may come down there and participate. So it was funny though that it's like, this person's been the compliance officer for a while. I don't know how long, a year or two, and kind of coasting along, and now all of a sudden it's like all this stuff's got to be done.
Look what I learned.
Yeah, it's like people don't know. They don't know what they don't know, and so they leave there going, "Holy crap! I thought we had all this stuff under control, and there's so much more that needs to be done."
Yeah. Yeah, and it was the one of our clients we've been working with for a while. They came, and the first day she was like, okay, it's confirming and little pieces that I didn't know, and it's putting it all together. And then the second day, she started just literally zoning out. I had to get over in front of her. She's like, there's so much I didn't know. So, there's going to be parts that everybody has to learn about. But anyway, come and join us at the last one in 2018. And no, we do not know when we're going to do another one. The only reason we're doing this one is because so many people asked us, please do another one so we can come.
We were in this boot camp and people were sending us messages like, when's the next one?
When's the next one? Can you tell me when the next one?
It's like, we hadn't even done this one yet.
Yeah, and so and remember, we do keep the seats limited, and we had just the right number last time, but we always
sure
go back and forth on where that limit is.
Yeah, make sure when you come, bring your shirts. That's all I'm saying.
That's right.
Make sure you have all your clothing.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe David will not forget anything, but he's started a mess with that. So,
yeah.
Topic for today.
Yeah, topic for today. So we talked a little bit last week about something that's going on in Oklahoma, about people that did this big test of their response of if things go wrong and go down, and then politicians got involved and just got to be a big mess. And so we're going to talk today about crisis communication planning.
Yes. So, and the crisis doesn't have to be one that just dropped out of the sky, so to speak, but it's really communications, business continuity kind of communications. But most people think of it as crisis communications. And yes, the madness in Oklahoma, I mean, this entire brouhaha started over what? Huh?
Brouhaha.
Brouhaha. Yeah, it's a word. But it started because, and we've read the description of the plan that the CISO put in place, right? I mean, it sounded appropriate when their internet connection went down and they knew it was going to go down. There was a thing happening that required that connection to go down, and they evaluated their options and created a very well planned approach that allowed people to utilize mobile devices to access the patient information. They made sure encryption was in place, all these other things. It all seemed on the up and up. I don't know what else I would have done, David.
Yeah, I mean, all look fine to me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe bring in a whole nother internet connection and switch to that one just for the day and then tell them to take it out. I don't think you can do that.
Yeah. I mean,
and you don't know what was going on. So.
No, and you kind of want to do, I mean, fail over internet's great, and that's a backup plan, but you kind of want to know what to do when that doesn't work. So they're testing the worst case scenario here.
Yeah, it was great. I thought it was a great idea. Mm-hmm. And it looks like they did exactly what you should have done. You did a risk analysis, you built a plan, and you were prepared for it to happen, and it actually gives you a plan C if you already have redundancy in your internet connection. So that seemed good, but now everybody went nuts about it. But we're going to focus on the actual part of the communication. So that seemed like the way to do it, is you evaluate what could go wrong. A, we're going to lose our internet connection. And how long will that happen? We don't know. It could be an hour. It could be a day. So they said, let's make a plan. And they came up with ways that covered the security and all those things. And, similar story from New Orleans,
Nala.
NOLA. Actually, I don't know if they say that, but Nolans, they do say. But during Katrina, there was a facility, one of the hospitals that we, saw information and, that whole post-mortem discussion that you have after a crisis. And they, that several days, they had plans and they were able to function. But one of the things that really hit home about planning every little detail for things, and certainly Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans is not something that I could say you would actually have every little detail planned. But one of the things they ran into that would have been something that should have been in the plan, and it's now something we worry about all the time because we read this, is they had flashlights everywhere, but they didn't have any extra batteries. So once the batteries went dead, the flashlight was useless.
You get some of those shake lights.
I know. Shake lights. Yeah, there's a lot of different things, but because they didn't have the spare batteries, they found that useless. And when I was writing my notes, I was clearly in a little frisky mood because I said the flashlight isn't about communicating, except maybe with Batman. Hello, nerd alert.
Yeah, I never understood why the villains just didn't take out the light.
I know, really? Why didn't they just shoot it out?
Yeah.
That was the whole thing. We're going to keep them from telling Batman we need him. But we have the bat phone. But anyway.
That was prior to the internet. Now he just gets, text message.
But the flashlight is it at least could have been a weapon or something like that. But the fact that it became useless as the tool it was intended to be is one of those things that you really have to keep in mind, especially when it comes to communications. Because today, oh, good Lord, when you're without power, the whole world stops.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when Hurricane Irma came through here, we're in Atlanta. It's still a hurricane. And we were without power maybe 24 hours. And, I was running around making sure I had my backup batteries lasted as long as they could, keeping my internet connection up. Then I had other batteries that I could use that were the power bricks to keep my devices charged so that they could use the, mobile network and I could still get information. But even then, those are going to die. And we actually have a crank weather radio thing.
Yeah.
So, there's a point where all you're going to do is need to know what's happening with the weather.
Yeah. And some people, believe it or not, it's kind of funny, but some people don't realize that if the power goes out, you're going to probably lose internet and stuff like that. Because we get those calls, it's like, internet's down. Then you find out after 30 minutes of trying to troubleshoot that their power's out.
Yeah. Could you have brought that up before now?
Yeah, it kind of happens. And then, sometimes they'll say, well, I thought everything was wireless. Power's not wireless.
No. Tesla, if we could get Tesla, but no. But anyway, when it comes to power, we need it. We can't function without it. So you've got to have those battery backups, those spare batteries and all of those kind of things to build that environment. And it's like we were at a hospital recently and we were doing our walkthrough, and the hospitals have those big generators and the surgery centers have them too. They're like Mack trucks starting up out back when they do. And we're like, so is the server on the generator? And everybody is still trying to find the person that knows that for sure.
Yeah.
Because, everything else has the red plugs, but they had to come in with there's a long story, but anyway, they're not sure in this particular server room if this particular outlet that feeds some of these backup batteries that are in there are on the generator. And, so you have to have the backup batteries. Note to self. I had this happen. I was working with a group that was building a new surgery center, and They had the generator out back, and they had all the servers in the server room, and it was perfect. But they didn't have on the main server a backup battery. And I was like, you got to have a backup battery here. No, we don't. We got the generator. Okay, but you don't understand what I'm saying is the generator, there's a gap where the power is actually out. But, it's small, but there's a little switchover. Mm-hmm. And that switchover is probably enough of a loss of power that without some sort of battery, that device is going to go down. So even if you have the batteries or the generators, you have to know. And in that particular case, I had to prove it to them. You know how I had to prove it?
You had to make them do it.
Yeah. All right. Let's all watch this while you go over there and flip that switch and make the generator come on. So the power goes out, server goes down, generator comes on.
See, told you.
As predicted. It was the only device that didn't have its own battery. I'm like, get it? So, but people don't really understand. And a lot of it does have to do with the fact that we are so aware now of putting those backup batteries in place so that you see the power go off, but everything keeps working because those backup batteries are there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know do you put them on main devices or just servers?
We have them on servers, critical devices, and network devices.
Oh, yeah. Have them on a network communication device, please. The internet's down. Everything else is up, but the internet's down.
Yep.
The router isn't on one. But it's those kind of things that you need to worry about. And it's not just, for a minute. It could be for a day or a week. You've got to be able to figure those things out. So we do have resources available for us at ready.gov. And this, of course, works for any business. All small businesses should be doing this. All enterprises should be doing this.
Yeah, they even have home stuff.
Yeah. Pardon?
So they even talk about, personal home stuff.
Yeah.
On that site.
Yeah. It's for your family, everything. This is something that you need to have a plan for because we're all sprawled out now. We have plan after plan after plan because I'm so paranoid because of what we do for a living. We watch all this stuff and become more and more paranoid. The bottom line is you need to have a full plan of the who, what, when, why, how your team can communicate with each other, how you can handle your data, how can you talk to your business partners when you need it. What about your patients or your clients, your insurance companies, your lawyers, the news media if you need them? Getting all of that information out is very important. And it could be that you're the only one hit in the community. So don't think that everybody will be hit. You could be the only one with a fire.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. And you definitely want to make sure that you have the ability to communicate with your patients and your clients. Actually, in a BA due diligence questionnaire, one of the business associates, which is one that would be key to being able to be helpful during a crisis, said that they don't have to have an emergency mode of operations because the clients are basically on their own. It was like, we don't have one because that's not our problem. But anyway.
Well, that's probably going to be true, even though somebody tells you it's not. You get something like what happened in New Orleans, we just talked about. They're not going to be much help to you either.
Right. But it's one of those things that, for example, during Hurricane Irma, as we mentioned last year, I was in Key West, which I'm about to go celebrate the anniversary of that in Key West. But one of the things was that the people who are the first responders, the people who were responsible for, buildings that elderly lived in, the communities where people needed to come back to them, those people stayed there. And it's not, everybody's like, why don't you get out? Well, because you can't get back in if you're out and you're the one that's supposed to make things ready for people to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just that immediate issue you've got to worry about. It's coming back. And most people that I have spoken with that have ever been through one of those, if you don't have to stay, it's not the storm that's the problem. It's the 2 or 3 weeks afterwards that are the problem, where you can't get access to things. So if you're out and let's say you have a practice in one of those areas and you evacuate just like everybody else does, how do you let your patients know when you're back? How do you communicate to your staff? Who knows where you're going to go? All of that kind of stuff. So you have to know who you're going to call.
I guess the bat light thing, I guess. I'll put it on Facebook. Everybody reads Facebook.
Yeah. Well, they do have, during crises, they have communication spots on Facebook. Yes.
Yeah, they do. That's pretty interesting.
Yes. If you're willing to get out there on the thing, it's scary enough, but
yeah, I know.
If you do that.
They're all in the news lately.
I know, really.
That's another podcast.
It's a whole nother story. But there should be communication or conversations about how you're going to manage that amongst everybody in charge. And it involves things like make sure all the people in charge have maybe multiple phones or multiple little backup batteries. I know that some of our partners, Jerry Blass up in New Jersey, when Hurricane Sandy hit, he had communications capabilities, but he had to travel to get the power to charge everything up. So every so often he would have to go somewhere else to charge up all of his equipment and get to a signal. And he had a schedule of when he was going to make calls. But you have to have some idea of what you're going to do when that happens. And your main team has to make sure that your entire staff knows how to get in touch.
Yeah. Another thing you can do on the communication side is pick up those two-way radios at, Walmart or whatever. Used to be Radio Shack. Sad story. Anyway, you can pick up those two-way radios, and those work great, usually for several miles.
Yeah. And during these kind of times, that's perfect for.
Yeah. Just understand that it's not private. So
yeah,
it's a public channel you're on, but okay.
Yeah, it is public. Don't think it's encrypted or any of that kind of stuff. You're not on a sat phone, then you're not encrypted. So, but it is important to also remember batteries for those things.
I know, like multiple batteries.
You're going to do it. But the intent is that everybody on your team, and then all of those that are critical to your team, say your IT support company, you know what's going to happen in a crisis and what's your plan A, B, or C to be able to communicate. And even if let's say you're going to set up a Facebook group, that's one of the things people do. You set up a Facebook group, then you need to make sure everybody knows, hey, here's the Facebook group. Make sure you're connected and you're part of it. And oh, by the way, David, you're our IT company. We want you to be part of it too. And then David's figuring out how to communicate with all of his staff, and he at least knows what's going on with you, what's the status of your building, your equipment, those kind of things. But having multiple layers and a plan is imperative for those who you need to communicate with in those initial parts. If you can go a week without talking to them and everything's fine, don't put them in there. It's the ones where within the first week, you're going to need to talk to them. And then there's that thing about having a prepared script. And everybody's like, I don't need one of those. David, we just talked about it with David saying, I don't want to say it that way.
Yeah.
There's a great value to a prepared script. It defines what will be said. You have to have an outgoing message on your voicemail that, if somebody calls into your phone, you don't want the normal message there. So you got to know what that's going to say. Maybe something on your website or your social media pages. But you don't want somebody to basically think you got nothing,
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't tell people what to say, there's no telling what they'll say.
Yeah. Plus, you got to worry about people saying, I can't say that because HIPAA.
Oh yeah.
And so you gotta deal with that. And ready.gov had some great things, some examples of, if somebody says this, what do you say? And then you come up with some very specific scenarios that you might hit.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely don't just assume people will know what to say. Everybody loses their mind during this. Things that like, why did you? Well, I was panicking.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking.
I wasn't thinking. So they pull out their script, and you remind them to pull out their scripts. And Ready.gov, they had some great stuff like, if a customer calls and says, when will I receive my order? What will you give me to compensate for this delay? What are you going to say?
I'm going to say, look, we're in a crisis right now. I ain't got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. When your employees call and when should I report to work, or do I have a job, or am I going to get paid, or those kind of things. Is everybody okay? How do employees know? I mean, they're going to worry about their family and their coworkers, most of them. Some people don't worry about their coworkers, or their others don't worry about their family. I don't know, but you could have a call from law enforcement or regulators. When did it happen? What happened? If there's an incident, what are the impacts? Those kind of things. What do you want people to say if they get, stumble upon those kind of questions? Oh, and then as we talked about in Oklahoma, remember? Elected officials.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could be coming by and asking. Now, it could be innocent. Hey, how's everything? We want to know how we can help. We're doing an assessment. We know that communities do that. Suppliers, hey, I've got this delivery. Do you want it? Whoa. So neighbors, news media, all that kind of stuff. If you evaluate some of these kinds of scenarios and you pre-script what the answer is going to be, or you make sure everybody knows there's going to be a script, then it will make these things much better. And then, of course, you want to know when to use them.
Yeah.
You don't want these to be like, oh, pull out that script whenever anything gets confusing. Not that one. Not that one. Not today. No, not that one. So you have to have a part of your plan is who is going to be managing the communications, who's going to be in direct communication, how we're going to communicate with anybody. All of those are part of the plan, but somebody has to say, hey, we're initiating the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's
break
time
the glass.
to go.
They put them behind glass in case of emergency.
There you go. You come in with a hatchet and bust it down. But it's a way to let everybody know. Sometimes big stuff's going to go down. And you can plan for it. But other times you don't know, and you want everybody. It's one thing when there's bad storms coming, tornadoes may hit today, and everybody's aware and prepared for a tornado to hit. That could happen. So everybody's alert and you're aware. But, these crazy active shooter situations, or, a methane gas thing causes a toilet to explode. You just never know. Those are not, you're not going to have any warning. So you have to know how you're going to, launch the plan. And then, ironically enough, do you have a crisis communication center or an emergency operations center? Yes, it's an EOC or a CCC. Got to have your TLA.
Yeah, got to have an acronym.
Yeah. And it's all about, I know ours is going to be the BKT. That's where our crisis communication center will be, is the BKT, the boss's kitchen table. It could be virtual, it could be physical, but face to face, you're alleviating some of the issues with technology and functionality and all that kind of stuff. So it makes it a little bit easier, but you do have timing and transportation you have to worry about, unless you make sure that everybody's nearby. And depending on what your job is, that may be a requirement. We know firefighters and others that have to stay, their family, they deal with them best they can, and then they got to go stay at the firehouse or in the secure locations. So you have to have that fact that everybody needs to know what A, B, and C is. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I'll just have plan A, plan B. I don't think that's a good idea. Do you?
No, especially when you're not testing them, because then that's how you get plan B and C. Figure out plan A didn't work.
And you didn't find it out until you tried to use it.
Let's run out the front door. Oh, wait, we can't. What do we do now?
Yeah, it's actually thinking through these scenarios is what we want you to do. So know that if you have a physical location, that's helpful if there's limits to what you can do technology communication wise. But the walkie-talkies, if you're within a certain number of miles, you should be okay. But a virtual location, as long as you have power and connectivity, that's great.
Yeah, just find the most pessimistic person in your office. They'll tell you how everything can go wrong. So they'll be very helpful with saying that ain't gonna work.
Yeah,
we can do this. That won't work.
Yeah. Bring Eeyore in. So having those plans A, B, and C to all of these, what if something happens to, if you say everything's going to center around one person, what if that one person isn't there? What if something happens to that one person? Or what if something happens to that one person's spouse or children during this crisis? You're not going to tell them that the business is more important. Most people wouldn't anyway. Mm-hmm. And
you'd hope.
You hope, yeah. So you have to not assume that one plan is going to work. And, just like the assumptions, one would assume that the Oklahoma CISO did what they were supposed to do. But now the Oklahoma CISO is having to explain to the governor why this plan was a solid one. It's ridiculous. But anyway.
So what happens when you get politicians involved?
Well, and you didn't even know they were coming,
Maybe somebody said they're having free barbecue. I don't know.
Yeah, that was it.
That's a thing. That's a thing around here. Yeah, barbecue, man. There are going to be politicians everywhere.
It's Carolina barbecue, which is all different. We know about the barbecue disagreements. Yeah. Pork versus beef versus mustard versus.
You got to have Carolina barbecue sauce. Mustard, not the white one. No, yellow. Or as we say, yeller.
Nanner. Okay. So the other part is we expect to be able to use our mobile devices. And guess what also could go down in a storm?
The mobile devices.
Yeah, the towers that allow them to communicate. If you're in an area where you already have a bad signal, things are not going to get better.
Yeah.
But making sure everybody understands, like, for example, even, when you're in a remote area where signals are sketchy and you're like at one bar, maybe, you can still send text messages.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not talking about SMS where you've got cute little dancing little emojis and stuff. I'm talking a basic text message. Those can still get through with a very low signal. Even if you can't get a call through, you can get those through often.
Yep.
So make that part of your plan. Have an awareness of where the strong signals are. Have those backup plans. Have, do you remember back in the day when you go to these events and it was a big crowd, the systems would be overwhelmed with all the different people trying to use this new technology. Mm-hmm. And I know you're not too young to remember that.
No, I remember it. Yeah.
Where you'd sit there and you'd just keep trying to make a call and everybody around you was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And you just give up, I know I used to be at big festivals in downtown Atlanta and be there with a lot of friends. And, you might as well just send smoke signals because it wasn't going to get through. So the same kinds of things could, we don't necessarily go back to the dark ages, but we are dark.
Yeah.
Anytime
we have regional things that happen, we still have issues trying to get out. Mm-hmm. we had a hurricane come through here a couple of years ago, and we didn't get a whole lot of damage, but just trying to use the cell phones, kept getting the lines are down or trunks are down or whatever it was. We kept getting these error messages when we'd call. and it stayed down for a while because everybody's trying to call and check on other people and all this stuff, all this traffic going on. And it makes a big difference.
And the people, the first responders and the people who really needed it can't get to it. But it gets back to having multiple methods of communication planned. So assuming that you can get a connection with a mobile device while they continue to improve things, if you have a regional problem, don't be counting on them.
Yeah,
now,
bad light.
If it's just you and you're having an issue at your particular office or whatever that might be, you can probably count on being able to do it. But again, you never know. A, B, and C. 1, 2, and 3. But social media platforms, as much as we despise them most of the time, this is one of the areas where they're really, really handy.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you use, to me, doing something like a Facebook or even a Google group or, LinkedIn has private groups, and it's not as bad as Facebook, but everybody's not on LinkedIn. Facebook is the book face, as Krista calls it.
The book face. The book of faces.
Yeah. Most people are on it. But then again, do they want their personal book face account connected to everybody else from the office? So you've got a lot of things to worry about if you're just going to assume you can use that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's everybody creates a work profile just to use for it. I don't know, but you got to figure out what works for what's reasonable and appropriate
for your environment.
There you go. God, for once it worked.
I was picking up what you was putting down.
All right, so let's cover some of these tips that we have here. Know exactly how you're going to communicate with different groups. Not just each other, but your patients or your clients, your incident response team members, the rest of your staff, your business partners who you need to communicate with, the media if you need to get information out that you control. And then don't forget, you're also going to have family members of patients and staff who may be calling in. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be prepared for that, because if you're not prepared to know what you can and cannot release, you know what I'm saying? We've talked about this before. Your crisis plan needs to include understanding what it means to make a professional decision based on information you have during a crisis. So what's best for the patient? Have several USB power packs. Man, those things are awesome now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can power something for a long time.
Yeah, and some of them have the ability to even power laptops.
Yeah.
Now, and not just to charge your phones, and they're not huge. I mean, my first one that I got after you and I, just 2 years ago, my first one was so heavy. And now I got one that's so lightweight, it's like the size of my phone.
Yeah. And some of them even are solar powered, so you can recharge them, solar power.
If you can get to the sun.
If the sun goes out, we have a lot of problems. I don't think there's a plan D or E or F for that.
No, But you do, for the solar power stuff, you have to have sunlight, not cloud cover.
Yeah, but we in the country.
Yeah, out in the country. So consider those power packs have several different kinds of sizes of batteries, and check them periodically to make sure they still have a charge.
Yeah.
We went and grabbed some during Irma, and it was like, these have like less than, they basically say, throw me away before you even use me. The walkie-talkies, perfect where phones don't work. They're, but it is public. Anybody can walk around with one of those stupid little antennas and a headphone and listen to what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Like the back in the day with our cordless phones.
No, we used to have party lines, remember? You know what your neighbor's talking about. You just pick up the phone.
I know.
Real carefully.
Be careful. Got your finger on there. You lift one edge, put your finger on there, and then slowly.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you hear it go, did you hear something? Sound like somebody pick up the phone in the other room.
But develop a phone tree plan so that the days that you you have the ability to use your phone. That's another thing. Those phone tree things that, I've dealt with them my whole life. All the ladies at the church they had a phone tree that if somebody passed in the community, you knew that it was time for you to get your baked beans ready. So it is fascinating. This year I am baked beans. Next year I'm going to be deviled eggs.
I'll bring the nanner pudding.
There you go. But you know what your assigned dish is. You know who's serving. Everybody knew what they were supposed to do. That's exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about. And if you ever have been in one of those environments, because where I'm from, all the ladies at the church, if somebody passed away in the community, if it wasn't, your family, you were part of and each of the churches would say who's serving and who's handling every meal. It would happen to take care of the family because these huge families, and certainly mine was huge. And you really appreciated not having to worry about that. Mm-hmm. But the thing that was so fantastic about it is everybody knew what they were supposed to do, and you got a phone call, and you knew who you were supposed to call, and everything was activated, and you knew where to deliver the food and who was going to do what. Everybody just knows, and it happens. I remember the first time Carla saw it all happen, she's like, how did they just know what to do?
Because they have a plan.
It's a plan. It's a crisis plan. So, do like the ladies at the church. Everybody knows what they're going to do. There you have it.
All right. Just for some reason, I was thinking about the church lady from Saturday Night Live.
I know.
It just makes me laugh thinking about it.
Dana Harvey.
Yeah, he's awesome. All right, folks. That's our show for today. I didn't remind you at the beginning, but hey, share this out. Social media, all this other stuff. Hey, you know what? We actually have a YouTube channel that's up and running and working now. It's been there. We just didn't know it was broken. So you can actually go to YouTube and listen to our podcast and rate us and comment and all kind of other stuff there. So there's another format to give us some stars and thumbs ups and all these other things. So still looking for those. Still need them. Get out there. Make it happen. Remember to follow us on social media. Share us out. Rate us, as I just said. And as always, you can send in your questions or ideas, and we might feature them in a future podcast. So remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.